girls, I called this emergency town meeting today because a huge problem we have in LJV. This!
What did the TV do wrong? Yeah, we like that TV. It's our friend.
What? No, not the TV itself, but what's on the TV. Somebody uploaded a men's review on LumberJillville's YouTube channel, and it was that clown and co-mayor Alexa.
Well, let's give it a watch. Maybe it will give us clues as to the whereabouts of Dexy, Queen Diva Marie, and even co-mayor Alexa.
Yeah, you're right. And to be honest with you, my first thought was to just delete it off of the channel so it never existed, but I had to show y'all this, so I put it on private. But let's watch it. Maybe there's some clues in there, just something.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to LumberJillville.
Oh, okay. That review was a little different than when I watched it. When I watched it, the clown and co-mayor Alexa, they were talking directly to me.
That's beyond the point. That clown gave us some clues from the get-go.
What clown? Yeah, I didn't see any clown in that video.
That leads me to my first observation. This clown appears to those based on overall fear. The Robotominas are not programmed to feel fear.
Oh, wait, so you're telling me that the Robotominas, LJV's head of security, can't see what's possibly the biggest threat to LJV ever?
Precisely. Also, by saying he can be whatever he wants makes me believe he's a shapeshifter, one of the demonic type.
A shapeshifter. Oh, like Jacob from Twilight?
Interesting choice, but no, think more like Pennywise from it. This shapeshifter chose to be the form of Doink, probably based on your fear of clowns.
OMG, can we have one October, one Jill-O-Ween, without some crazy evil threat trying to overthrow LumberJillville? Just one? Either way, we need to get together, we need to brainstorm. We gotta at least figure out where the others are.
Unfortunately, it appears that co-mayor Alexa has chosen her side. I'm sorry, Mayor N, but I have some ideas as to what we can do next to try and stop this evil.
Yeah, it appears that she has. And that hurts deep. Her and I have been through so much together. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, mostly downs, but either way, I love that little co-mayor. I just want her back to how it used to be before she found out the secret. But we got to put that aside. We got to keep moving forward. So let's figure something out, because at this point, I don't know what to do. Hey y'all, welcome to LumberJillville. Women's wrestling lives here. And welcome to today's very unique, very different style video than anything I've ever done in LJV, where I cover a bunch, and I mean a bunch of unreleased women's wrestling figures through the years. Now I want to start out by giving a big shout out and a huge thank you to Fig Heel. He has an excellent Instagram account where he posts almost daily content, and he has an amazing YouTube channel. Now make sure to check him out. So his other account, Unreleased Wrestling Figures on Instagram, is what gave me the idea to make this video. That's where most of the images that I show you today are straight from. I reached out to Fig Heel and made sure it was cool what I was doing and it was okay if I used the images. And not only was he okay with it, but he was super friendly and super supportive. So make sure if you're not following him on Instagram, you go do that. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He has amazing content. So thank you. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of figures to go over today. So let's start out with Mattel and see what figures we never got. So let's kick this off with probably my most desired figure that I want out of all these figures I'm showing you today. I wish this would have came out. This is the NXT TakeOver Billie Kay, and it's included with the NXT Women's Championship. And I just love this figure. I was a big fan of Billie and Peyton, but this is so cool and so different from any Billie we got. We had a Billie Kay released with a battle pack with Peyton Royce, and also she got an Elite. But this figure in itself looks so different than any Billie Kay that we got. I love that attire. I think it looks really cool and it pops. And the fact that it comes with the NXT Women's Championship makes me wonder if they had plans of her winning that singles title, because she never held the NXT Women's Championship. So it's a really curious release here and one that just never happened. But yeah, if anyone has any leads as to where this figure is that is pictured, let me know. I will spend money to get it. It looks awesome. So continuing on with that NXT TakeOver line, we have Paige here. Now, we did get this figure released in Basic Series 105, but in this particular NXT TakeOver packaging with the NXT Women's Championship, we never saw this hit shelves. And this is another cool figure, but it helps that we did get this figure released separately, just not in this wave. But yeah, I still want that Billie Kay so bad. Alright, we have this WWE Shop exclusive Then Now Forever Elite 3-pack with Lita, Sasha Banks, and Wendy Richter. How cool is this? Now, we did get the Wendy Richter released later in a Network Spotlight Elite line, and that Sasha looks to be that WrestleMania Elite and Eddie Guerrero inspired gear, but this Lita in the attire that it was planned to be released in never came out. And I'll show you on the next slide what the Lita was supposed to look like, but either way, how cool would it have been to have this Elite 3-pack released? 3 generations of groundbreaking women's wrestlers in one 3-pack. I think this would have been so awesome. I would have loved to have this in my collection, but unfortunately, as you'll see in future figures, WWE Shop exclusives tend to kind of pull back their releases here. So yeah, it's a disappointment we never got this 3-pack, but at least we did get the Sasha and the Wendy released. And the Lita we've got released kind of in a certain form, but not in the attire that it was planned to be released in. And let's take a look at that. So this is what the Lita was supposed to look like in that Elite 3-pack, and it's very different from any Lita we've gotten. Sure, we've gotten some Litas around this time released, but this is rated R Lita. This is the Lita that accompanied Edge in a very controversial run in her career, so I think this would have been really cool to have in the collection. So it's unfortunate we haven't gotten this gear yet for Lita, but I say yet because it is a possibility for the future. So next up we have this really cool looking Ruby Riott Elite. Now it's a shame because Ruby Riott did have an Elite and a Basic release. That Basic is super underrated. 2 awesome figures released by Mattel, but we never got this figure that we're looking at right now. And what really makes this figure stand out is the newly tooled boots and also torso. It looks like they used that Basic head sculpt on the Elite body, obviously with updated boots there, and we just never got this released, but I think this would have been an all-timer Elite women's wrestling figure in my opinion. But her other 2 figures that Mattel made were pretty darn cool, but I would have really loved to have this. Alright, so the next unreleased figure, I wanted to show you in person because I have an image of it here. It's included in the New York Times bestseller, Crazy Is My Superpower, which was AJ Mendez or AJ Lee's book. Tremendous book, I highly suggest you read it. But what's really cool is when you open it up and you go to the middle of the book where there's a lot of images here, you can see this figure, this image really stand out. Now the caption reads, "An official Mattel prototype of me as Kane. The outfit I wore in this segment was an homage to the Queen of Crazy, Harley Quinn." Now how awesome is this? Not only is it an unreleased AJ Lee figure, but it's when she wore Kane's mask and dressed as Kane and pays homage to Harley Quinn. This would have been an amazing figure to get. Now, I'm not saying that we'll never get it, because now that Punk's in the company, maybe AJ Lee can sign a Legends deal, and we can get this figure once and for all. Elite Greatest Hits line, anybody? When this WWE Shop exclusive Asuka was shown off, it created a buzz in the collecting community. I mean, how awesome does this figure look? Now, we did get this figure released in the Network Spotlight Elite line, and it came with the headpiece and the gold mask. However, there's 2 additional masks, and most importantly, that robe never saw the light of day, and that is super frustrating. I was so disappointed when they released this in the Network Spotlight line, and we didn't have the robe. The extra masks, I get it. But that robe looks so awesome, and we never got it. Now, I do think Mattel kind of made up for their mistake when they released that Ultimate Edition Asuka, because that figure is amazing and that robe is great. But how cool would this figure have been if it came with the robe? I was really disappointed on this one, y'all. At least we got the figure, but maybe down the road we could get this re-released with the robe in a Greatest Hits line. So this Bend and Bash line was kind of doomed from the start, in my opinion. I mean, anytime Mattel tries to do a kid-targeted, unique line, usually it goes belly up, and it doesn't really sell a whole lot. You know, right now they're kind of pushing the Knuckle Crunchers, but before that, they had the Bend and Bash figures, which were hard plastic figures with stretchy, rubbery type arms. And to be honest with you, I was really excited for this Bianca because I have a shelf of Bianca figures, and the more Biancas the better, and this actually looked like a pretty cool, pretty unique figure, and I really wish it would have came out. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, these figures didn't really seem to sell. I think they kind of cut the cord early on these, but yeah, they kind of warmed the pegs at my local Walmart, but I would have loved to see Bianca. This would have been the first and only woman released in this line, and it never happened. This is an 8-inch Vinyl Aggression Melina figure by Jax, and boy, this looked amazing. This is right up there with that Billie Kay NXT TakeOver figure for my most wanted figures in today's video that I want for my personal collection. I mean, it exists. You can see a picture of it. They revealed it, but it was never released to the mass public, unfortunately, and I love it. It's just so unique and so different. It's kind of cartoony, but I absolutely love the style that they went with here, and yeah, this is a real letdown that we never got this figure because I just absolutely love it. If anyone out there has any leads as to where this figure is, let me know. But yeah, there were some men released in this style and they just didn't go through with it, so it's unfortunate, but this figure looks freaking cool. And obviously Melina is one of my favorite WWE superstars of all time, so I would have loved to have this in my collection, and maybe it's out there somewhere. So here we have Linda Miles, aka Shaniqua from her time with the Basham Brothers, and a Titantron Live figure that never saw the light of day, and this would have been really cool to have. Now, she did have a very, we'll just say, interesting character and gimmick at the time, but either way, she had enough TV time, and her history on Toughen Up definitely warranted a figure, and unfortunately, she never got a figure, but this one definitely looks neat. So this Titantron Live Stephanie was from a back alley street fight set that was never released. But what makes this Stephanie really, really cool is it depicts her sweet and innocent, younger Stephanie McMahon character, I guess you could say. One that didn't last long. You know, she'd quickly become heel, become hated, and we got so many bad girl Stephanie figures, but this sweet and innocent Stephanie never saw the light of day, and I think this would have been a pretty unique figure. This is China from Ripped and Ruthless Series 3. Now, the Ripped and Ruthless line was actually pretty neat. They were all sculpture-esque type figures that usually had an action feature, but the detail that was sculpted into them was pretty awesome. I did cover the Sable on the channel a few years back, and it was a really cool figure, but this China, it looked awesome. This would have been a great China to have on display, and it's unfortunate that we never got it. So here's a unique one for you. This is a face sculpt and scan from Brooke Adams, aka Brooke Tessmacher, aka Miss Tessmacher. But yeah, she never got a WWE figure released by Jax, but it looks like they were gonna produce it. As you can see from the caption from her own post, it looks like it was gonna go into production, but Jax never made a Brooke Adams figure. Now, Impact did make a Miss Tessmacher figure, and it's one of my favorite figures in my collection, even though the scale's a little wonky. It's an amazing, beautiful figure. One of my favorites, honestly, so at least she got that, but it is unfortunate that we never saw this head sculpt and scan released on a Jax women's figure. Even though, in my opinion, the Jax women's figures had some of the worst proportions in the history of wrestling figures. So here we have Stomp Series 2 China in very different deca. Now what I mean by that is she did have a figure released in that Series 2 of the Stomp line. However, it looks very different than what was shown in this image. It didn't come out looking like this. It was much more simple. Much less colors were used on the final product. But either way, this line wasn't a very popular one. It was kind of a love it or hate it line. I think a lot more people hated it more than they loved it. So the fact we didn't get the figure released in this deco, I think it's definitely okay, because at least we did get China. Alright, so let's jump right into Linda Mania, y'all. Linda McMahon Mania. We have 3 unreleased figures that I'm going to show you today of Linda McMahon. I definitely think this ship has sailed and we'll never see a Linda McMahon figure, but that's kind of a shame because she did play a pretty important role in certain storylines in the Attitude Era. So this first one is from the Classic Superstars line, and as you can see, it's okay. I mean, Jack did a horrible job with women's bodies, but hey, the head looks like her, so that's a thing. But let's move on to this next one. It's interesting. Yeah, so next up we have Linda McMahon in this grayish jacket here in a wheelchair. And it's no wonder this figure didn't see the light of day. Now, I doubt that this figure was going to come with the wheelchair. It looks like it was probably a separate accessory pack, which is all good for your wrestling figure feds. But I think this photo alone is a big reason why we didn't get the Linda. It's just not right. So this was a big storyline in the Attitude Era. Linda was getting pushed around in a wheelchair, acting comatose while Vince was doing Vince things, right? Well, she surprised the crowd, surprised Vince when she snapped out of it, stood up, and went after Vince McMahon to a huge pop. And that was definitely a big part of the storyline, but if you're not familiar with wrestling, and a lot of executives probably weren't, when they saw this image, they were probably a little offended when they found out that Linda McMahon really doesn't require a wheelchair. There's plenty of individuals out there that require the use of a wheelchair from day-to-day life, and it's not right to have a storyline that kind of makes a mockery of that to be released. And yeah, I think this image, what you're looking at right now, is the reason why we never got this figure, honestly. The final entry of Linda Mania is this Linda right here. This looks to be like it was probably going to come out in the Classic Superstars line, much like that first release. It looks like it has a pretty extravagant soft goods jacket going on. It is a blurry picture, it is what it is, but you can see that it's very different than the other two I showed you. Not much to say here, and like I said, the Linda McMahon ship has sailed, so I don't think we'll ever get a Linda McMahon figure, and I'm okay with that. So here we have Christy Hemme, TNA Marvel figure, and it's unique, I'll say that. It does kind of remind me of that 8-inch Vinyl Aggression Jax Melina that was unreleased, but this one looks to have more articulation, and it's definitely a style. I really love that Melina, and this one's definitely a pass for me. It's kind of like, what were they going with? It looks like cartoony, like it was made for kids, but she's dressed in like a little skimpy schoolgirl outfit, so it's a little confusing. I think there's mixed signals thrown, and it's no wonder this was never released, because I don't know who this figure's for. Like, I wouldn't feel comfortable displaying this figure in my collection. It looks a little bizarre, right? So here we have TNA Marvel Tracy Brooks, and it's a shame we never got this figure because the detail that they put into this looks really cool. The likeness looks great, the attire's cool, the articulation looks pretty well done, and I have no hesitation to say that this figure would have been awesome if it came out. Now, unfortunately, we never got this or any Tracy Brooks figure, so that's really a shame because this figure looks cool. So here we have a Jax TNA Terra figure, or Victoria as we know her in her time in WWE. Now, this is a shame we never got this figure. It looks really cool. I love the attire. I think the sculpt looks neat, and it's a shame because the Impact and TNA women's figures were actually pretty well done. I'm going to have to do a video once I acquire all of them. But either way, it's sad we never got this figure. Now, it is important to note that she did just sign a Legends deal with WWE, so I'm crossing my fingers hoping that we get a Legends Elite of Victoria, multiple, because she definitely deserves it. But yeah, this figure, definitely wish we got it. Here we have Impact Series 13, Velvet Sky. Now, Velvet Sky got multiple figures with Impact, and they were all really cool. Now, to be honest with y'all, I don't own any of them. Those Impact women's wrestling figures have really gone up in price. The only one I own is Miss Tessmacher, and I love it, but I'm definitely going to have to try to acquire all of them, especially Velvets. But here, this attire is gorgeous. Now, it's hard to tell in the image here, but it looks like the black on the top and the bottom of her skirt has like a splatter paint design on it. And I think that would have been really cool. Maybe the budget wasn't allowing that to happen, but either way, it's a shame we never got her in this attire. However, it is important to say that the other Velvet Sky figures are pretty freaking awesome. So these last few unreleased women's wrestling figures, these might hurt a little bit to look at because they're pretty recent. And a lot of people out there that watch LumberJillville are probably familiar with these ones, but I gotta cover them. And first off, let's talk about the Asylum Toys Impact line. We had 2 women included in the line, including Deonna Purrazzo. This would have been her first figure, and it's not happening. Now, to be honest with you, as you can tell by this 3D sculpt, it didn't look like it was going to be that great in my opinion, so maybe it's for the best that the line didn't happen. I was just excited to have Deonna in my collection, but the line went so that's unfortunate. She does have a Major Bendy, but Major Bendies to me are kind of like micro brawlers. They're really cool collectible pieces, but not action figures, right? So hopefully Deonna does get an AEW figure. However, with the rate AEW releases figures, it will probably be 2026 before we see Deonna in that line. And the other woman that we're not getting from that Asylum Impact line is Jordynne Grace. And this one was really disappointing to me because I met Jordynne Grace. She's one of the few women's wrestlers I've met. And she's so talented, super awesome. And I want to add a figure of hers to my collection. However, there's some redemption here because Powertown Wrestling actually has a Jordynne Grace figure coming out. I'm hoping to have it here before the end of October, but who knows? They tend to move kind of slow. So this one doesn't hurt as bad because this figure, once again, the proportions look wonky. The figure kind of looks cheap, so I'm okay with it not coming out, especially since the Powertown figure of Jordynne looks awesome. I'm real excited for that one, but either way, at the time, I was disappointed this was canceled. I'm going to be honest with you, out of all the figures I've showed you today, this one probably hurts the most. This is Abaddon from AEW Unmatched Series 8, and it was shown off. It looked really cool, and then it just disappeared in the line and the announcements. And at the time of this recording, we haven't heard from AEW or Jazzwares whether we're ever getting an Abaddon figure, and that's such a letdown. Now, I get it, she's not the biggest star, doesn't have the most TV time. However, I think her character and her gimmick is really cool, and anytime I can add a women's wrestling figure to my collection that has such a unique gimmick and character, I soak it in. I love that aspect. And I was really excited to add this Abaddon to my collection. In my opinion, the AEW women's figures are actually pretty freaking amazing and detailed, and this one looks like it would have been no exception. So the fact that we didn't get this figure and it hasn't been announced, it really hurts because this figure would have been awesome to have in the collection. It hurts looking at this picture. It hurts. Hurts my heart. So that was a lot of unreleased women's wrestling figures. Now, there were a lot of other images on that Unreleased Wrestling Figs Instagram account of dolls and other little trinkets and other women's wrestling memorabilia, I guess you could say, that was never released that I'd like to cover in a separate video. So let me know in the comments if you want to see me do that video and how you like today's video. Also, let me know what unreleased women's wrestling figures that you saw today hurt. They just hurt you deep that we didn't get them, because there are quite a few as I was going through this video that I wish we got. Now, that being said, there are going to be a lot more videos here in Jill-O-Ween 5, so make sure to stay tuned to LumberJillville. I appreciate you watching, and have a great night, y'all.